Hey guys, good morning. This morning we are in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 18 to 36. I want to welcome you guys to Calvary New Life. The Chinese have a proverb, and it goes like this: one generation plants the trees, and the next generation receives the shade. This is the benefit. You see, in the beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 2, we see Hannah essentially planting the tree. She is praying for her son fervently, and in her obedience, she receives the benefit. God blesses her with this son, and her obedience is blessed. And in the beginning of 1 Samuel, we see her praising God for her son, for this miraculous answer to prayer. But in this proverbial garden or forest, we also see weeds arising. And as we read this chapter, we're going to read about Eli's sons and their corruption within the temple. So if you have your Bibles, turn to 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 18 to 36. And we'll start with verse 1. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. You see, Samuel is likely between 3 and 4 years old, and he had a little priest outfit. In Exodus 39, we read about the linen ephod. It was a sleeveless garment worn from shoulder to waist that was essentially tight-fitting and customary for priests. You see, Samuel was a descendant of Aaron since his father, Elkanah, was a Levite. And the point is this: we have this young boy dressed in this priestly garment. On a side note, I kind of think about my first Halloween and the things I was wearing when I was little. My mother, for some reason, dressed me up as the devil himself. Red cape, pitchfork, horns. I have no idea, but I contrast that to Samuel here, who's wearing a little priestly linen ephod. And we see the young Samuel here, demonstrating great maturity. I can barely get my son, who's 3 years old, to keep his clothes on, like during a picture. But think about little Samuel here. He's wearing this linen ephod. I recently read this hilarious article of kids who unintentionally embarrass their parents at moments when they did not expect. And maybe you can relate this if you have kids who embarrass you out in public. One parent said this: I was riding on a public bus, and my 5-year-old put her head on a guy's shoulder in the seat in front of us and said, "This man is very fat." Can you imagine your kids doing that on a public bus? Another parent said this: my daughter's daycare had circle time every morning as a way to start the day. Anyway, we were late and walked in the middle of circle time. My daughter said, "We're late because mommy had diarrhea." Talk about your kids knowing everything about you, right? Here's another one. My 4-year-old son was misbehaving in a store, and I told him that if he didn't control himself, we were going to leave. He escalated, and I picked him up and carried him through the entire store. He was surprisingly putting up a little fight. As we passed the checkout lanes, he loudly says, "Hey, mister, put me down." I didn't hesitate, making eye contact with anyone. I just turned beet red and marched right out the door. Think about a smart kid, right? Acting like he's being kidnapped. These are things that maybe my kids might say, maybe your kids might say. But we see the contrast with Samuel here. As a young man, he's serving the Lord in the temple. Notice this, that he's ministering in the midst of great corruption. You see, corruption doesn't stop or hinder the work of God. In fact, every time the church is plagued with people that are like Eli's sons, God raises up his Samuel.